Hello everyone, I'm Antom64.
And I am Volkamar.
And welcome to the HellfireComms playthrough of Wonder Boy the Dragon's Trap. This is a remake of Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap, funnily enough, for the Sega Master System. It's a little bit of a 2D side-scrolling platformer with, combat elements here and there. Nothing in the Dark Souls vein, of course. This is much more cutesy. But before I start to ramble, I'm going to hand over to Volk, who actually has some inkling of what the Wonder Boy series is all about. Go for it, Volk.
So, this game takes place immediately after the events of Monsterland, where you defeated the Cyber Dragon and supposedly saved the world, but this continues from that, and something very different happens where, instead of saving the world, you get cursed. And the entire game goes around the fact of you trying to find this item called the Salamander Cross in order to undo the curse that has been laid upon you by the Cyber Dragon.
I've got to get into the Wonder Boy series, because that all sounded pretty dope, to be honest. But before we go even a centimetre further into this castle place, these fucking graphics, man, Jesus.
Yeah, the art style was kicked up many, many notches, and funnily enough, it was all done by one person by the name of Ben Fickett. And yes, it was one thing that drew me to the remake, just seeing it in this brand new art style. Gone is the 8-bit, in is the kind of cutesy and whimsical art style. And here we go, this is the curse-er that we're about to fight, the Meka Dragon,
oh my God,
who was the final boss in the previous game, and I'm just going to stun lock him to death because I played this game a million times. I'm not exaggerating.
Isn't this basically like how Symphony of the Night starts? You kill the boss of like the previous game?
Yeah, it is pretty much like that. In Symphony of the Night, obviously, you're in the final dungeon as Richter Belmont, and you fight Dracula, and then Richter ends up becoming Lord of the Castle, in which you have to play as Alucard to go put a stop to all that. And it's kind of similar here, where you just get cursed and you have to kind of uncurse yourself. But as you go through the game, the curse gets, I wouldn't say stronger, but the nature of the curse changes. So obviously we're a lizard now.
I love the casual way he came out of the door like, oh, I'm a dragon now. Hey Cyclops, is what's going on? And the castle seems to be burning down now, so I'm assuming the Cyber Dragon was load-bearing.
Yeah, he seems to take to this very quickly, but then again, I suppose if you're a seasoned adventurer, you take this sort of thing in stride. It's just like, well, I'm a dragon now, well, better make the most of this, I guess.
Now, I'm looking up the developers for this remake, Lizard Cube, and I'm not actually sure if they've done any other games, but according to this little thing here, the idea of creating a fan remake of Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap, was originally conceived by Omar Cornut as early as 1998, Jesus. Development eventually began in late 2013, and the remake was first announced in June 2016. The remake was originally developed by programmer Omar Cornut and artist Ben Figgett, who previously worked together on Soul Bubbles as a fan remake developed by reverse engineering the original Master System game's code. Interesting. Lizard Cube worked on the game in collaboration with original game designer Ryuichi Nishizawa, and there's a lot more on there. You can just basically read the Wikipedia entry if you want to know more.
This is basically a reverse-engineered Master System game, give it a new lick of paint and changed up in places here and there, and we'll get into those as we get through the game. But here we go. The final dungeon that we're just in is now burning to the ground, and now we must look elsewhere for a means to undo the curse.
Well, this is a bit of a sour opening to a video game. Just got cursed. Wonder Boy doesn't seem too put off by becoming a dragon, though. If anything, his social standing's gone up because, you don't have to pay for charcoal when you go to a barbecue. You can just light that sucker yourself.
He blended a bit better as well, because obviously everybody else around here is monsters as well, and yeah. The pig is the king of sass in this game. The smoking pig is probably one of the most famous figures in the Wonder Boy franchise, possibly even more famous than Wonder Boy himself.
Huh.
As well as telling your fortune or giving you codes in which you can load your save game in the original, he also sells you various items that will help you on your way.
Wait, are those pigs the same? I'm getting mixed messages here.
I'm pretty sure it's the same guy, but I'd like to think they're all, like, part of this big family and they're, like, all twins or something. There's, like, 12 of them scattered across the world.
Okay, here's a human.
Hello, nurse.
Indeed.
She'll offer you healing services. You'll find her in various places in the dungeon as well, so you're not necessarily strapped for health. If you're keen enough eyed, you'll find a nurse somewhere nearby and she'll fix you right up.
Man, it has been a while since we did a game in post as opposed to live, like with Simpson City Run. I think it was Fantastic Dizzy the last time we did a post-commentary playthrough.
Yep, that sounds about right. I could have done this live as well, but we figured doing it in post would be a better idea, because then Tom could appreciate the awesome music as we go through.
Oh man, I'm digging it already. And I have to say, regardless of what you might think about the game, I've got no problems with DuckTales Remastered. I'm sure the gameplay is solid. I played a bit of it myself. Actually, what am I saying? I think I've beaten it. It's solid gameplay-wise, but I never liked how the graphics of the characters clashed with the 3D backgrounds, and that's kind of been a sticking point for me with Waypoint's art direction for a while. Here, everything is 2D animated, and it's so seamless, you know?
It blends perfectly, and this is something that you can tell that a lot of time and care was taken into it. Just in making the world look as vibrant and alive as it did in the 8-bit version.
So how does, like, the layout of the game go? Is it a bit like, the Metroidvanias, where you can explore in a non-linear fashion and whatnot?
Absolutely, although some areas will be locked off to you until you either find an item or you unlock a new beast form, but you're otherwise free to roam around as you please. But for the sake of this first part here, your first task is to find a key to unlock the windmill, which will take us to our first character-specific dungeon.
Ah, okay, also you change forms as you go through the game then?
Yeah, every time you defeat a boss in this game, you get changed into a different animal form, and that form will have new abilities that you didn't have before, and will also have its own set of weaknesses as well that you have to kind of work your way around.
Ooh, cool. I like the sound of that, actually.
Well, I'll get into each of the individual forms as we get to them, but I can tell you that there is a lizard, a mouse, a piranha, a lion, and a hawk, which will be among the many characters that we will be playing as throughout this playthrough.
You seem to have a bit of trouble in regards to the beach, mate. It's a good job I didn't specify a no-hit run.
The thing is with this game is that even though I have played this game a lot, you're never entirely used to the physics. I wouldn't say they're like 100% slippery, but there is a little bit of slidiness to it that you have to try and kind of compensate for. And of course, if you haven't played for like a week, a month, a year, it's a little bit jarring to get used to it, but once you do, it's all fine.
Instead of an angry sun, they went with an angry cloud. How British.
I don't know, he looks pretty cool to me.
Yeah, kind of chill, actually.
He's got the shades, just like, you know, I'm just hanging out here spitting out fireballs. It's a simple life, but I like it. Apparently, the armor that we just picked up allows us to cross-dress as a goblin. Now, the descriptions for each individual item weren't in the original. This is kind of like some extra flavor they added for the sake of the remake. And now I'm going to actually show you what it was like back in the day.
Oh my
we are
God.
returning to 8-bit. One thing about this game is that you can actually switch between the retro music and the retro visuals on the fly, just whenever the hell you want. And you can even mix and match, so you can use the modern music and sound effects with the retro visuals if you wanted to, or vice versa. But I thought, for at least one part of this playthrough, I would like to show you how I played it back, how people would have played it, rather, in 1989, because of course I wouldn't have played it back in 1989, because I would have been approximately 1 year old.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's the point. When did you start playing video games? Can you remember?
Vaguely. It was about 1993 or 1994. I was about 4 or 5 years old, and it was all started off with Alex Kidd in Miracle World. And my introduction to gaming in general came by a party that my aunt and uncle were holding, which obviously as a 4-year-old child I didn't have much interest in. So it was either watch the TV watching reruns of Home and Away, or plug in the Sega Master System they had and play that instead. And obviously I went with the Master System route.
Why would anyone want to tape Home and Away? They play it like twice a day, don't they?
Something like that.
This is blowing my mind, man. Just the ability to switch on the fly from modern to classic and vice versa.
It's even more jarring when you actually switch between retro and modern, because you think, The backgrounds are all very simple here, because obviously it's 8-bit, there's only so much you can do, but just look what they've done with the tower.
Jesus Christ.
Like, the difference is night and day, and it's absolutely incredible. Like, you wouldn't have even thought that was actually a windmill if you were playing through the game on the original hardware. So here we go. This is the desert. This is another hub area, so to speak. Along the way, we will find our first beast-exclusive dungeon, or character-exclusive dungeon, as I mentioned earlier. There's actually 2 parts to the desert, and we'll be actually visiting the second part later on in the run, but right now that's a little too advanced for us. You could probably get through there if you were like a god among men, but it's incredibly difficult. You'll probably get 1 hit, if you even so much as try it.
Now, we've seen a few of them in action already, but can you explain to me what the elemental blocks you pick up are for, mate? Are they just basically like projectiles, side weapons?
They are side weapons, and they can randomly drop off enemies as you progress through the game. I can go through each of them in turn. The first one you normally pick up is the fireball, and as you might imagine, that just shoots a fireball. Not similar to the one that we're shooting as Lizard Man right now, but it's slightly stronger. It has like a wobbly arc thing, so it's generally better for hitting things at a distance. You've also got the tornado, which skirts across the ground, hitting things as it goes and bouncing all over the place.
Nice.
You've got the lightning bolt, which hits all enemies on the screen, and that's very, very handy if there's just a lot going on and you just kind of want it all gone. And you've also got the boomerang, which, providing you can catch it when it returns, you can actually retain it, and it's actually probably one of the more effective items in the game, in my opinion.
That's really neat.
Yeah, once you get a knack for catching it, it's pretty simple to use, and it is an absolute godsend. I rely on it quite heavily, personally.
Oh, just rain down treasure on me.
And there's one more as well, which is the arrow, which shoots upwards and is great for taking care of those aerial clouds from earlier, and is also handy for a boss we'll be fighting very soon as well.
Interesting.
And that's your lot. And as you go through the game, obviously, you'll find like heart pickups and money, and the little blue bottles as well are actually your... I wouldn't say they were continues, but they kind of act like extra lives. When your health gets reduced to 0, your health gets replenished by about... It's either half or all but 1. I can't quite remember off the top of my head.
Oh, it's like the potion from Link's Awakening, then.
Yeah, so you get most of your health back and then you can just continue. Very, very handy, especially if you're going for a long, hard slog and you're perhaps not as well equipped as you'd like to be. So this is the pyramid that we're supposed to be going into, but of course, being an open world game, you have the ability to hop over it, and doing so will reward you with many a secret thing.
Just bopping down the steps.
And there we go. Treasure ahoy!
So explain to me your history with Wonder Boy, mate. Was Dragon's Trap the first game you played back in the day, or did you play the original games?
I did play the original Wonder Boy, and it was okay. I mean, it's definitely more arcadey than this, certainly. It's basically just a side-scrolling platformer where you have to collect fruit in order to maintain your life. And you just go through there, defeat enemies, platform, kill a boss every now and again. Very simple stuff, but it was fun. Dragon's Trap was the game I played immediately after, and was, apart from Alex Kidd and Miracle World, was one of the first Master System games I ever played, and to this day is still one of my favourites, like, of all time.
I think that was hard-coded into the Master System, and it may have technically been my first video game ever, because I remember getting, and I told this story many a time, but whatever, a good story is worth retelling multiple times and multiple playthroughs, I suppose. My mum and I were setting up the Master System one Christmas, and I just switched it on without a game in, and boom, Alex Kidd came up. But I think my first proper game, in terms of cartridge, was Sonic 1 for the Master System, and I love the Master System aesthetic, like the 8-bit graphics, the box art, where it's just like a white background with black graph lines and whatnot. Oh, aesthetic as fuck.
It is something special, especially with the chiptune as well. Some of the chiptune tracks in the Master System were very good, but there were also some which were questionable at least, absolutely deplorable at best. Or worst, rather. So here we go, this is our first dungeon that we have to venture through as the Lizard Man to see about trying to undo this curse. in this dungeon you'll find many heads with fireballs, frogs for some reason, and spooky ghosts, as you might expect.
Well, it's Egyptian themed, wasn't like frogs one of the plagues in, olden times?
Oh yeah, you're alright actually. It actually makes a lot more sense now that I think about it.
No, there you go.
The deepest lore. This dungeon isn't overly complicated, but it does throw a few curveballs your way, like with enemies on the trampoline that you have to either time your shots well with, or just jump over them and ignore them. And one thing you tend to learn in this game pretty quickly is that you don't necessarily have to take every fight that's presented to you, and at times it may be wise just to try and avoid a direct confrontation if possible.
Man, you need to shield something fierce, mate. I'm not putting your game skills down, but can Lizardman even wield weapons? It seems like he's just restricted to his fire breath.
Yeah, part of the Lizardman's weakness is that he doesn't have a shield, but his fireballs can block other fireballs from the enemies. So
okay.
You kind of have to try and figure out your way into timing your shots to block the enemy projectiles as well as using them to dispense of the enemies as you go by.
I got you.
Here we go. This is the doorway to the first boss. Well, technically the second boss of the game, but the first boss as far as the Dragon's Trap unique stuff is concerned.
You're not tricking me, Mr. Pig. You're not a dragon.
So this is the Mummy Dragon. He's a fairly simple one. He'll come down and allow you to get a few pot shots at him, and if you have a stockpile of arrows, you can usually get a fourth on him as well. His attacks aren't too tricky to dodge. If you duck under him, usually you can dodge whatever he throws your way. So it's mostly a case of trying to keep yourself underneath him, and then when he comes down, just taking a few pot shots at him. Give him the odd arrow for good measure if you want to. But yeah, fairly simple. It's not a overly tricky first boss, especially considering you just lost all your power from the last dungeon, so to speak.
Yeah, they gotta go easy on you. Man, that fucking trickster. Was that meant to be like a will-o-wisp or something? Those things are bad news. Oh my god, I'm a mouse!
The game has changed somewhat now. We can now walk on walls and ceilings, denoted by these handy little checkerboard blocks. And this unlocks a whole new world of possibilities for us and a whole new world of challenges as well. Because of course, as the mouse, whilst we do have a sword and shield, our range is now absolutely pitiful.
So you have to rely more on the projectile things that you pick up.
Yep, you definitely don't want to lose them at this point, otherwise you're going to be in for a bad time. It's not entirely impossible, but you're certainly going to have your work cut out for you, especially since you've been used to using the Lizardman's projectile for a good 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, luckily it seems you have a bit of learning time before you get into the next area/dungeon, and man, is this treasure ever gonna end? God damn.
Oh, there's a treasure chest that comes up later on that I think you'll like. It's just endless treasure. It's amazing. But handily, they give you a shield that will suit your new mouse pal.
I think this pig is stalking us, like, oh, he's a mouse now, break out the mouse merchandise.
But there are actually specific equipment for each beast form as well. And there we go, that'll do for now, so tune in for part 2.
We'll be uploading 2 parts of this today, guys, so come back this afternoon for part 2 of Wonder Boy, the Dragon's Trap.